where we are now in the Iran war, the war between Iran, the United States, and Israel has entered a dangerous new phase. It's no longer just about airstrikes and missile exchanges. On the ground, Iranian forces are scrambling to hold key infrastructure, while US and Israeli forces are tightening the noose through cyber attacks, drone strikes, and the movement of thousands of American troops into the region. Iran has already suffered heavy damage to its heavy water production facility and other strategic sites, crippling parts of its nuclear-related infrastructure. At the same time, Israel has expanded its security buffer zone in southern Lebanon, directly targeting Hezbollah, Iran's most powerful proxy, while the Houthis in Yemen continue to launch long-range attacks on Israel, turning the conflict into a multi-front war. From a geopolitical angle, this isn't just about one country. It's about who controls the Strait of Hormuz, who dominates the Gulf, and who ultimately decides the price of oil and gas in the global market. Trump's take the oil strategy and Kharg Island now. Let's zoom in on the most explosive part of this story. President Donald Trump's repeated talk about seizing Iran's oil, and specifically Kharg Island. In interviews with major outlets, Trump has openly floated the idea of the United States taking control of Iran's oil resources and even physically occupying Kharg Island, the country's main crude oil export hub in the Persian Gulf. For viewers who don't know, Kharg Island is absolutely critical. Almost all of Iran's seaborne oil exports are loaded there. If the US were to seize or block Kharg, it would effectively strangle Iran's economy in a matter of weeks. Analysts say this move would be more than a military operation. It would be an economic occupation. But Trump is also talking about a 15-point proposal aimed at ending the war. He claims that Iran has already agreed to most of these demands, although Tehran has pushed back, saying it hasn't formally accepted the terms and remains suspicious of Washington's true intentions. What's clear is that the US is trying to use maximum pressure, a mix of military threat, energy control, and diplomatic carrot and stick. Is the US preparing a ground invasion? Parliament Speaker has gone on record accusing the United States of covertly organizing a ground invasion of the country, even while Washington publicly pushes for negotiations. That's an extremely serious allegation. On the ground, we are seeing thousands of US Marines and special forces moving into the region. Intelligence reports and military analysts suggest that the Pentagon is planning something beyond just air power. Targeted raids, possible seizure of key ports, and pressure on inland choke points. Why does this matter for you as a viewer? A full-scale ground invasion of Iran would be one of the largest military operations since the Iraq War. It would mean decades-long occupation, massive casualties, and a fundamental reshaping of Iran's political system. Strategists warn that occupying a country almost the size of Western Europe would be a logistical and political nightmare. Right now, the US appears to be opting for limited, high-impact operations instead of a full-scale invasion. But the line between raid and full-scale invasion is getting blurrier by the hour. The 15-point proposal and what Iran really accepted by the Trump administration's 15-point negotiation plan. While the full list is not public, reporting suggests the demands go far beyond a simple ceasefire. They likely include severe restrictions on Iran's ballistic missile program, limits on Tehran's regional proxies such as Hezbollah and the Houthis, drastic constraints on Iran's nuclear facilities and enrichment levels, a demand to roll back Iran's influence in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, and possibly a clause about relinquishing control over key energy infrastructure. Like Kharg Island. Trump is publicly claiming that Iran has agreed to most of these points, but Iranian officials, and even some US-based analysts, warn that the language is being oversimplified. Tehran has said it is open to talks, but keeps stressing that it will not accept humiliation or a surrender-style deal. From a real-world perspective, this is a classic case of two sides broadcasting different narratives for domestic and regional audiences. The US wants to look tough and decisive. Iran wants to look defiant and undefeated. The axis of aggression. Russia and Iran beyond the US-Iran standoff, there's another layer. The growing alliance between Russia and Iran. Western defense officials have described what they call an axis of aggression between Russia and Iran, warning that both powers are sharing drone technology, electronic warfare tactics, and intelligence ahead of and during the conflict. Why should global audiences care? Because if Russia leans fully into this war, by supplying advanced weapons, cyber tools, or even direct military support, Iran could become a key node in a broader anti-West alliance stretching from Moscow to Tehran. That would turn a regional crisis into a full-blown great power confrontation. At the same time, countries like Pakistan are positioning themselves as potential mediators. Islamabad has signaled it's ready to host US-Iran talks in the near future, trying to play the role of a neutral bridge between Washington and Tehran. Whether that actually leads to a real peace deal or just a temporary pause remains to be seen. What's at stake for the Middle East and the world? Let's pull back and look at the bigger picture. The Iran-US-Israel war is not just about one country's security or one president's strategy. It's about energy security, regional stability, and the global power balance. If the Strait of Hormuz is disrupted or Kharg Island is seized, global oil prices can spike overnight. If Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen become permanent battlegrounds, millions of people could be displaced and new refugee crises could begin. And if China and Russia keep watching from the sidelines, the world could enter a new era of tense multi-pole confrontation. From your living room in the US, or wherever you are watching. This might look like a distant war, but its impact will show up in gas prices, stock markets, and even your local economy. For ordinary citizens, The most immediate risks are higher energy costs, supply chain disruptions, and the possibility of a wider regional escalation that could drag in more countries. What's likely to happen next? What's the most realistic scenario over the next few weeks and months? Most analysts expect intensified pressure on Iran's oil and gas sector, possibly through naval blockades or targeted raids on Kharg Island, rather than a full-scale invasion. They also expect continued back and forth in negotiations, with both sides using the media to pressure the other while making tactical concessions when needed. At the same time, there's a high risk of proxy warfare continuing through Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Iraqi militias. There's also a dangerous risk of miscalculation. If one side feels cornered or believes it's about to lose, it might launch a desperate large-scale attack that spirals the war into a new level of violence. That's the scenario that most defense and intelligence experts fear the most. Closing call to action, let's be honest. This kind of war can feel overwhelming and confusing. There are airstrikes, missile attacks, negotiations, and harsh rhetoric from multiple sides. But here's what you need to remember. You are not a passive observer. What happens in the Persian Gulf doesn't stay in the Persian Gulf. It affects energy prices, global markets, and even how safe or unstable the world feels in the coming years. If you want to stay ahead of this story, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. We'll be breaking down every major escalation, every peace move, and every new geopolitical twist, explaining not just what happened, but what it really means for your life. And if this video helped you understand the stakes of the Iran-US-Israel war a little more clearly, hit the like button, share it with someone who cares about geopolitics, and leave a comment. Do you think Trump's plan to take the oil will actually work, or will it explode the situation even further?